Today, we're diving deep into preparing for technical interviews at companies using modern Python tech stacks, specifically those working with FastAPI, PyTest, Pydantic, and Alembic. Whether you're interviewing for a senior engineer or principal engineer position, these technologies have become increasingly popular, especially in startups and tech-forward companies. This video will prepare you to answer the toughest technical questions with confidence and demonstrate your expertise. Before we dive into specific questions, let's briefly review the core technologies you should be familiar with. FastAPI, a modern, high-performance web framework for building APIs with Python. PyTest, the leading testing framework for Python applications. Pydantic, a data validation and settings management library using Python type annotations. Alembic, a database migration tool for SQL alchemy. Companies use these technologies together to build scalable, maintainable, and well-tested API services. Now, let's explore the key technical questions you might encounter and how to structure impressive answers. This question tests your architectural knowledge and experience with real-world applications. A strong answer demonstrates a modular, domain-driven approach. Explain how you separate your codebase into domains or features, each with dedicated routers, models, schemas, and services. Describe your layered architecture. API layer, root definitions, and request-response handling. Service layer, business logic implementation. Repository layer, data access abstractions. For more complex applications, mention hexagonal or ports and adapters. Architecture to isolate business logic from external concerns. Remember to discuss dependency injection for service composition and testing. Emphasize following the 12-factor app methodology for configuration management. For this question, demonstrate your understanding of Pydantic's role in maintaining data integrity throughout your application. Explain how you create 3 distinct model types. Request models, validating incoming data. Response models, controlling API outputs. Domain models, representing internal business objects. Discuss using field validators for complex validation logic and leveraging Pydantic's config class. Share how you compose models for nested data structures and implement custom validators for business rules. Mention how you handle API versioning through inheritance and composition of models, and how you use Pydantic's field class for documentation and OpenAPI schema generation. This question assesses your experience with database evolution in production environments. Describe your organized approach with chronological migration files using descriptive naming conventions. Explain how you use Alembic's branch management for feature branches to prevent merge conflicts. For complex production environments, outline your multi-phase approach. Schema-only migrations first, for backward compatibility. Code deployment that works with both schemas. Data migrations as separate operations. Cleanup migrations to remove deprecated elements. Emphasize how you enforce idempotency in migrations and include verification steps. Mention how you integrate migrations into CI/CD pipelines with appropriate safeguards for production environments. Your answer should showcase how you create testable, maintainable code through proper dependency management. Describe your hierarchical structure for dependencies. Infrastructure dependencies, such as database connections, external clients. Repository dependencies for data access. Service dependencies for business logic. Route level dependencies for authentication and request validation. Explain how you leverage dependency overrides for testing and how you implement factory patterns for complex service initialization. For larger applications, mention lightweight DI containers to manage complex dependency graphs. This question assesses your approach to ensuring reliability in distributed systems. Describe your multi-layered testing strategy. Unit tests with PyTest fixtures for isolated component testing, integration tests using PyTest Docker Compose for service dependencies, contract tests with tools like Pact for service compatibility, end-to-end tests for critical paths. Explain how you implement custom fixtures for external dependencies and parameterized tests for edge cases. Discuss your strategy for handling async components in tests, including custom PyTest plugins for FastAPI endpoints. Highlight how you organize tests in CI/CD pipelines to balance thoroughness with feedback speed. This security-focused question requires demonstrating a comprehensive approach to access control. Explain your layered security model. JWT-based token authentication using FastAPI's security dependencies. Support for multiple authentication schemes. Role-based access control with fine-grained permissions. Describe how you separate concerns. Authentication middleware to validate tokens and attach user context. Permission, verification at the router endpoint level. Domain-level access control for complex scenarios. Mention additional security measures like step-up authentication for sensitive operations and comprehensive security event logging. Your answer should demonstrate how you create robust, user-friendly applications that gracefully handle failures. Outline your hierarchical exception system with domain-specific exception classes. Explain your exception middleware that transforms internal errors into appropriate HTTP responses with consistent structure. Discuss your philosophy that exceptions should be exceptional, using return values for expected failures and exceptions for unexpected conditions. Describe your strategies for external systems, retry mechanisms with exponential backoff for transient failures, and context managers for resource cleanup. Emphasize how you include contextual information in exceptions while maintaining security boundaries. This question evaluates your ability to build performant data access layers. Present your comprehensive optimization strategy. For query optimization, strategic eager loading to prevent N+1 query problems, composite indexes for complex query patterns, query-specific optimization with entities and load only, proper use of exists and in for filtering. At the application level, connection, pooling with appropriate sizing, statement, caching to reduce parsing overhead, bulk operations for large datasets, transaction management to minimize lock contention. Discuss implementing caching layers with Redis and using event listeners for tracking slow queries and performance monitoring. This final question assesses how you balance stability for consumers with evolution needs. Explain your preference for URI-based versioning for explicitness and client compatibility. Outline your versioning principles. Backwards compatibility within major versions. Clear deprecation policies with notice periods. Comprehensive change documentation. Automated compatibility testing. Describe how you structure FastAPI applications with version-specific router modules and implement version transformation layers between internal models and API schemas. Emphasize that you avoid premature versioning, making breaking changes only when necessary and batching them together. We've covered the most critical technical questions you're likely to face when interviewing for Python backend roles. Remember, Interviewers aren't just looking for technical knowledge. They want to see how you approach problems and communicate solutions. Before your interview, review these technologies in depth. Prepare specific examples from your experience. Practice articulating architectural decisions. Be ready to discuss trade-offs in your approaches. Good luck with your interviews! If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe for more tech interview preparation content.